And then we're also starting a new series today. Super excited about that. It's going to be called The Art of Navigating. And I had an awesome opportunity on a time away to go do some hiking out west. We went out to Utah and hit some of the national parks. And I spent a lot of time walking in the woods. And I was like, you know what, man, I couldn't help but think that this is a lot like following Jesus. When I was out there trying not to fall off of cliffs, I thought, this is like our faith, man. This thing is crazy. And so I said, I really learned a lot, honestly and truly, when I was out hiking in Utah and in kind of navigating some of the paths out there. Got lost a few times, slipped and fell once. Thought I was going to die, but my wife saved me. True story, right? So it's pretty awesome. She's amazing. For more reasons than just that. But anyway, I digress. But we're going to jump into a series here on the art of navigating, kind of navigating our faith. What does that look like to navigate life? And one of the things I was thinking about a lot, got a lot of time to think, a lot of time to reflect and journal when I was gone. And one of the things that kept coming up in my mind is just how our lives progress and how they tend to move, and we don't even really realize it's happening. And I was thinking about this for how this kind of works for us. When we're born, a bunch of you have babies, or you're having babies soon. There's babies everywhere here. Babies, right? So awesome. But right when we're born, our babies, and this is true for us, we don't really get to pick. We don't get to pick the when. We don't get to pick the where, the geography. We don't get to really pick what, right? We're not going to pick how we're going to kind of come into the planet, and even our natural bent or our genetics. None of that stuff is our decision, right? We're placed into a family, into a time, into a year and a moment and a country and a setting, and all of that is kind of picked for us. Right? It's just what it is. And there's a reality that really from the time that we can begin to make some decisions, whether we realize it or not, by the nature of how time works, we start making real decisions about who we're going to be and what we're going to do and what we're going to believe and who we're going to spend our lives with and what we're going to spend our time with. And whether we realize it or not, those series of decisions start to create a path for us. They start to create a trajectory for our lives. We kind of don't even know it's happening, right? I'm just like doing the thing. I'm getting up and it's Monday and I'm, right? But what we don't realize is that a path is forming for us. And that path is going somewhere. And I want to start to ask the question, kind of, where is this path going? How do I navigate this path? Where is it taking me? And do I kind of even realize that this is playing out? Right? These are questions that I want us to begin to wrestle with in the course of this series. How do I navigate this? And where is the path that kind of my decisions have made, where is it all kind of leading? And there's stuff that happens kind of along the trail, along the path that I'm walking, that is outside of my control, and a bunch of it is inside my control. We're going to focus a lot in this series on this part, on the series of dots that are kind of within our ability to choose something. One of the amazing gifts that God gave us is the gift of choice. I love that. And there's a weight to it, right? There's a reality to it. Like God isn't just going to choose everything for me. He's not going to just make me love him. He allows me decision. As being somebody who's made in his image, we get to choose things. I get to choose how I'm going to spend my time. I get to choose what I'm going to focus on and who I'm going to be with. And in some ways, I get to choose in a very, very real way, who I'm going to believe or not. What voices, when I hear something spoken or declared or read, do I believe that voice or not? And what we're going to discover in this series is those faith decisions form little dots, and those dots have a massive, life-altering ramifications, right? That sometimes can cause us to move in the right direction sometimes can cause us to move to a place of disaster. And the way we navigate that, the art of navigating it, is fascinating and something I think we want to get good at. I ran into this verse when I was thinking about this in Proverbs 14:12. Simply said that, right, the writer of Proverbs says, hey, there's a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. I call this a wake-up call verse. Right? This is a little bit like, whoa, wait a minute. Right? He's saying, hey, when you're doing the dots that just seem natural and normal, everybody else is doing them, it's fine, it's no big deal. And he says, hey, by the way, the end point of that thing is disaster. Right? You're going to fall off a cliff at the end of it. And there's a little bit of a wake-up call to that verse that says, I need to back up and think the path of least resistance, the path of being completely normal and like everybody else may not lead to the place that I think it's going to lead. It might lead, right, kind of down here into a place of death. Where is this going to take me if I follow this path down into the place that seems right? This should cause us to wake up and to ask the question, like what is happening here? Right? This seems right, and then all of a sudden it leads to death. We were on this one hike, and we found some people along the path, and we had kind of lost the path a little bit. I didn't experience this a ton, but out in Utah, like in the past, we walk around here in the national parks, which are phenomenal, by the way. If you don't take advantage of those, just do it because it's awesome. But those paths are pretty well marked, and you kind of have to stay on them. They're big and wide and well marked. These are not. This is like, man, I think I'm on the path, or maybe it's that way. I don't know what's happening, right? So you can lose the path pretty easy. And we were on this one path, this one hike, and we had kind of lost the path. And we ran into this other couple, and they seemed like they knew what they were doing. They seemed experienced. They were sweating. And so I was like, these people know, you know? And so we were like, where do you guys think it's going? And they're like, with total confidence, they're like, oh, yeah, it's that way. And so, our family of 6 starts, right? We all start marching after the people who know the way. Seems right? Right? And so we're walking, and all of a sudden, these people, they went a different direction because they weren't going the same way. They just sent us that way, right? And so we start making our way, and all of a sudden, we're in some weird place. And we're like, there's no trail, right? There's nowhere to go. We have very little water. I was like, this is how it ends. This is the end of the story. Sorry, folks. They all died in Utah following this the way it seems right? So we had to find out that the way that seemed right led to death, right? And then go kind of find our way out of it. Guys, this is how it is all the time. You all have a story like this where you're like, man, growing up or right now, everybody said this is a good idea. Everybody's doing this. Everybody has a car payment. Everybody's got a thing. Everybody believes this. Everybody lives together before marriage. Everybody's sleeping around. Everybody's got a thing. Wait a minute. Are you like totally sure that thing ends well? Are you sure that's the way that leads to life? What I want us to do is to begin asking the questions and to start resisting the deep natural instinct to just kind of follow whatever the confident person around us says is the right way. Maybe we should look a little closer and listen for a better voice and put our faith in that voice rather than the ones that are the loudest or the seemingly most convincing or that are held by the masses. Jesus would offer beautifully and wonderfully and refreshingly a different path. He says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And today, of course, we're just kind of introducing this idea, but the very idea that God would put skin on and come here and that he, right, would look and say, hey, there's something up here. There's a way. There's a path. And this path leads to life. And that's what I've come to give you. God with skin on enters the story that he created, squeezed himself into a time and a place and a human body and a physical form and the limitations of being humanity, all while being God. And he says, hey, I'm going to do these dots for you. Because, right, you've all kind of broken this thing, and I'm going to come and I'm going to do the dots perfectly. I'm going to fully and perfectly live for the glory and honor of God my Father. I'm going to perfectly fulfill the law. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your dots, I'm going to pay for them on a cross, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, this is beautiful, I'm going to give you a decision, an option, a potential dot if you want it or not. You can make a decision to say, I want that. I want to say yes, right here. Right? I'm going to choose this dot. I'm going to say yes to Jesus. I'm going to allow him to pay for my sin. Some of these dots were made sinfully, and I've broken God's law. All of us have. It's not a secret. All of us have lied or looked lustfully or broken God's law, spoken his name in vain, right? You name it. Jesus would say, I've paid for all that on the cross. I rose from the dead. And now what I want to do is offer you a different way, a different path. I'm opening up to you an entirely different journey, one that is marked by faith. And I want to invite you into it. And it all starts here. What do you want to do with that one? What do you want to do with that one decision that changes the potential of all the rest of the decisions? All the new dots come here. Now there's a whole new set of dots that are possible. I no longer have to live in this set. I'm rescued from it. Jesus says, I've come that they may have life and have it to the full. I've made a new path possible for you. Guys, that's phenomenal news. That's phenomenal news. And if that news is new to you, it's super important that you understand at least the ballpark of what we're talking about when we look at this. What Jesus is inviting us into here is not for you to become a certain kind of culture or a political movement or right to follow an organization. He's like, this is personal between us. I'm restoring your relationship with my Father, and we are going to be united. And I'm going to give you the opportunity and the ability to become something new. I'm going to call you something different. I'm going to call you my brother. I'm going to call you a child of God. You're going to be made new from the inside out. Now, if somebody says yes to that dot, which is within our ability to decide, and that new set of opportunities opens up, now this area right here is a whole new set of places to navigate, the path to walk. Let me show you some of what I mean. I love this passage we're going to look at today, Hebrews chapter 12. The author of Hebrews says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of faith. Right? The one who started and the one who finished our faith. He says, hey, let us run this race. Let us do it with perseverance. And let us keep our eyes on Jesus as we head into life more and more. But then he has this phrase that I love. He says, therefore, right at the very beginning. And he says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. And when the Bible says therefore, you want to go backwards. You want to look further back at why they're saying therefore. And so what I want to do is I want to do something we don't do here on Sunday morning a ton. I want to read a bit of an extended portion of Scripture. And I know that we all, myself included, struggle with attention span. So I'm just going to ask you to do your very best just to take a deep breath and relax. And you can either follow along with me if you want. We're going to be in Hebrews 11. If you want to follow with your eyes and listen along with me, you can. If you want to just close your eyes and hear me read the passage, that's fine. But just for the next few minutes, I want you to be fully present and take this passage in. And even if you have no background with the Bible at all, and you're going to be like, who are these people? You'll still get the vibe of it, right? It'll still be helpful. So I'm going to read it. I want you guys to stay in it. We'll talk about it from there. Hebrews chapter 11, starting in verse 1. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand the universe was formed at God's command so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith, Abel still speaks, even though he's dead. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away, for before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. By faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. And by his faith, he condemned the world and became an heir of righteousness that is in keeping with faith. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on the earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had the opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son. Even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned," Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead. And so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from the dead. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and worshiped as he leaned on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions concerning the burial of his bones. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Listen, he chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith, he left Egypt. Not fearing the king's anger, he persevered because he saw him who is invisible. By faith, he kept the Passover and the application of blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land. But when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell after the army had marched around them 7 days. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, and David, and Samuel, and the prophets who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith. Yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Now I want you to reread these verses. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Guys, a bunch of you grew up in church. I didn't. I didn't grow up hearing about Noah and Moses and the stories about Cain and Abel, but a bunch of you did. And when I read that passage, some of you think, yeah, this is the hall of fame of faith, or the hall of faith. These are the heroes of the faith. You know what they are? These are some normal people that believed God. I wonder, I would love to have seen what it would have been like to be Noah. Like, did Noah know that he was going to be Noah? Right. You should just come up here, right? Noah didn't know he was Noah. I wonder what Noah's days were like. Right? Here's what happened. Some version of this had to play out. At some point along the way, Noah looked at what God said, and he said, you know what? I'm in. You want me to build a boat? It's going to rain a lot. Never seen that before. But you said it, God. You want me to build a boat? I'm in. I'm making a decision to build a boat. And then after that one dot, the rest of Noah's days mostly were filled with getting up and working on a boat. Not so sexy, not so exciting, and it took like a really painfully long time. I wonder if Noah ever woke up and thought, I'm not sure this is the right thing, the boat building. Everybody seems to think I'm a freak for building the boat. That's how it would have played. Everybody's like, hey, Noah, it's going to rain. Right? sure, man. And he was like, just a little longer. I wonder if Noah knew that his daily faithfulness, his daily getting up and planting the dots after the big decision to believe and then all the little decisions to believe daily, that was going to turn into the story that made Noah and the ark that's plastered across, preschool church rooms all over the place, even though it's kind of morbid, right? That story was being invented by a guy just getting up and doing his path. Here's the thing that I think we are at danger of. Is we look back at Noah or Moses or Abraham or Joseph, and we think these men, or Rahab, these men and women, that they knew they were doing something historical, and they were going to make it in the Bible, and then it was going to be a big deal. Dude, they were doing Monday. They got up and they're like, I'm doing the next right thing. And the vast majority of their dots were not sexy. Every once in a while, there was a big decision to make to say, oh, wow, here's an inflection point. I'm going to believe God in a big way, and it's going to change how the rest of my dots flow. What Hebrews is telling us right now, Hebrews is saying, hey, you Christ follower, you're surrounded by people that went in on the dots, that said yes to Jesus, that said yes to God when he showed them something, he revealed something to them and asked them to believe in it. You're in the stadium of witnesses that have gone before you, and when faced with cowardice or faith, they picked faith. And we saw some of the cost, and we saw where that led some of them. And now the writer of Hebrews would say, hey, now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. You are the one in the arena. You're up. The gates are open. This is your time. This is not my time. It's not just me. It's not just people in full-time ministry. Most of these people weren't in full-time ministry. These are normal folks making game-changing, generation-changing decisions of faith, just the next right thing. Refusing to give in. Saying, I'm going to believe you even at great cost to myself. Or at great responsibility. Whatever it costs, it's irrelevant. They leaned in and said yes. See, there's two errors around this thing. Some of us think we're really important, we're a big deal, and that we're always in the center of the arena. I don't think most of us think that. I think most of us think Noah was a big deal, and Moses was a big deal, and Paul and Jesus, all these people in the Bible, and maybe some people in full-time ministry are a big deal, or some people I see on TV are a big deal, and God's going to use those people. I don't think most of us realize that the way that we approach our faith dots have every bit as much gravity as the people making these decisions in the Bible. Why? Because the writer of Hebrews just told me that, right? He says, hey, this is a big deal. Look at the people that went in front of you. If you just numb out for the next 40 years or 20 years or 50 years or 70 years, if you just take your attention and give it away cheap, something I'm so convicted of, how cheaply I give away my attention, minutes, tens of minutes, hours of just scrolling. Here's what the writer would say, hey, wake up. Your attention, your focus, it's all you have to give. And it's happening right now. You imagine Noah in the middle of the arena? Everybody's watching. You're not playing the game anymore. Hang on, man. I got to scroll for a second. Or 20 minutes. You're like, are you going to play? Are you in this? There is a calling of faith. There's a journey we're invited into. And this journey, I don't know yet, like Noah didn't know and Moses didn't know and nobody else knows the future and how this plays. But saying yes in my day, in my time, in my faith, in my dot, has some kind of impact down here, 10, 20, 50, 500 years, depends on when Jesus comes back. Later, when we look back, we're going to look and say, if we were faithful in our time and in our day, these people are impacted by that faithfulness. The people who are living and making decisions in our day are impacted by that. This is the part where our friends or our kids or our generation or the Akron area is impacted by decisions that are happening right now. Do you know that the things that are happening right here in this church and in churches in our area, this is going to change this area. It just is. The decisions that you make, not me, you, are going to change. If you square off with forgiveness, if you square off with that addiction, if I square off with getting my attention back, refusing to give it away cheap, there are people in real time that are impacted by those decisions. It's happening. We are in the arena now. I will not fall asleep. And if you're going to be here, I'm not going to let you fall asleep either. So if you fell asleep, you should wake up now. Here's the thing. You say, Ryan, what do we do with all this? I wish it was as easy as, hey, man, we just like make decisions and it goes great and we have a perfect path of faith and it's sweet. That has not been my experience. Okay? It's been joyful. It's been wonderful. Here's some examples that we're going to walk through in the course of this series. But I think that what happens to us in this faith journey is probably what happened to the people in Noah and Moses' day. It's probably what happens to us. It's certainly what happens to me. I experience things like this: drift. Whether it's in a day or a month or a year or a week, getting off the path is something that we have to recognize happens. We have to figure out how to deal with it and understand what do we do with this when this happens. It's going to happen. I'm a fallen creature, so are you, that has been made in the image of God and redeemed, and all of that is still fighting with itself. So we're going to have to face off and square off with drift. What do we do? How do we do that? Here's another one. Sometimes we hit serious forks in the road. Serious forks. We're standing here, and we're running into a decision, and this is all cloudy, and we're not sure which path is the right path, which path is good but just different than this one, and which path is going to be a bad decision that's going to harm me and lead me towards a place of some kind of death. You guys ever been in a fork in the road? I don't know whether to stay or go. Do I take this job or that job? What do I do with this relationship? You're standing in front of it and you feel it. And you go, I don't know what to do with this. What do I do when there's a fork? What do I do when there's drift? What do I do when there's a fork? Here's another one. What do I do when I get caught in what I call a loop? God is so gracious. And he offers us opportunities to learn stuff. In my experience, I don't always get it the first time. Okay? You might be better at this. Sometimes I'm a little stubborn. And so God will take me back through a set of circumstances that mimics what could cause me to learn the lesson I need to learn. back through another trial, back one more loop around the mountain, right? You guys ever experienced that? You're like, I feel like I've been here before. What can happen if I don't square off with the loop is you can go 5, 10, 20 years, and the same issue that haunted you back here will haunt you here. And by the way, if you just think you're going to get older and outgrow it, that's just not how it works. Okay? It'll still be sitting there looking at you. One more loop around the mountain. What do I do when I get caught in a loop? Does it mean I lost my salvation? No, you're in a loop. And what do you do with it? How do you deal with it? Okay? The art of navigating these kinds of things. By the way, like people in the Bible got stuck in these kinds of things and had to process them just like you and I did. Here's one more, then wrap up. If you're on this path today, some of you are here, and you kind of know it. You know that you haven't made a decision yet for Jesus. If I asked you face to face, hey, if you decide to follow Christ, you'd be like, man, not yet, or I haven't, or I was hurt, I'm still working this out. Some of us feel a draw to this path. We feel pulled in this direction. And we have to choose here, am I going to plant a dot right there? Where I decide to start a new path, and I allow Jesus to be that dot in my life. That game-changing inflection point where the path changes. Doesn't mean the pain goes away. Doesn't mean all the problems are solved overnight. But I'm brought into an entirely new set of opportunities and challenges. And what's guaranteed here is peace and joy and purpose and life. But I got to square off with this and recognize this for what it is. This isn't an accident. This isn't a coincidence. This is an intentional God. Listen, this is an intentional God inviting you into relationship. Nothing less. He loves you. He's for you. He came to give his life for you to have relationship. You can say yes to that right now. You can go all in. Here's what I encourage you to do. If you're ready to say yes to Christ, do it. It's simple. It is not easy. It feels terrifying. You're simply making a step. You're planting a dot. It's a decision. Jesus, I choose to believe you. I'm in. I don't even know what I'm doing. I remember feeling that way. I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm in. I'm in. It's simple as that. I'm in. I want to receive your forgiveness. I want you to be my God. I want you to be my Savior. I'm leaving. This isn't working. I want to leave this way behind. I don't believe in it anymore. I want to believe in you. That's the decision of following Christ. Forgive my sin. Make me new on the inside. I want to be in the family, and I want to be on the path. You want to make that decision? That is your call to make right here, right now. If you need more info, awesome. We'll help you get more info. You need more time? Awesome. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to a dot. And if you plant that dot today, tell somebody. Tell somebody. We will celebrate and rejoice. We will help you to get on the path in a way that makes sense and is helpful. So here's the question. Is this where you are? Here's some more questions. Is this where you are? If you would look and say, Ryan, I think I'm realizing that I drifted. I'm going through the motions. I'm showing up at church. I watch online, whatever. But if you really asked me where I am with Jesus, there's been some serious drift. I'm off track. I don't know what to do. If that's where you are, would you recognize that? We'll walk through that in this series of how to deal with drift if and when it comes up. Are you in a loop? Same issue, man. It's been 5 years. It's been 10. It's still there. And there's going to be a mountain to circle until we make a decision, a dot, to break that loop. By God's strength in his power. But it's our decision to make. Are you at a fork? Man, you got decisions to make, and you feel it, and you feel the pressure and the weight of it, and you wonder, what should I do? How should I do it? What do I do with all that? Today, I just want you, the only action is to find out where you are on the journey, and then begin to invite Jesus into it. Right? Over the next several weeks, we'll walk through it. You might just be in the middle of the path and saying, man, I'm just kind of chilling, and I'm enjoying Jesus. I'm so grateful. If that's the case, awesome. Right? Where are you on this? I'm not asking you if you go to church or not. I didn't ask you if you grew up in church. I didn't ask you if your grandpa was a pastor. Those things are neat. They have nothing to do with this conversation. This conversation is about you and the person of Christ, me and the person of Christ. When I look at Jesus face to face, I want to be found faithful, not perfect. I've already blown that deeply. But I do not want to be a coward. And I don't want to let you either. So we want to, by faith, square off with these things. And they're going to press us to the very edge of what we can handle. And you know what's on the other side? Life. 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 Do you believe that? If you don't, then don't. It's your decision. I believe on the other side, on all of this, there's more, there's life to be grabbed hold of. If you believe that, then move, plant a dot, invite Jesus into it, and we'll walk through the journey together. I'll have the band come up. If you pray with me, we'll sing and worship. Ask Jesus to help us with this. Lord, I'm so blown away at just how much grace you offer. How many chances and how much forgiveness. And God, in all of our weakness and my failure towards you, God, you continually invite us back and you invite us in. Thank you, God, that you're not like me. I tend to quit after a certain point when somebody fails me so many times. You don't do that. You persist with us. You move towards us. Lord, you knock down walls in pursuit of our heart. You even allow us to go through suffering at times that we might find more life. God, I don't know and I don't understand all of your ways, but I believe you. God, I pray that you would help us to believe you, not just once and for all, but in the next dot. Help us to be people that live and walk in faith in what you've spoken. Meet us here even now.